One day before Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia is laid to rest, the White House confirms President Obama is already looking for his replacement. Press Secretary Josh Earnest told reporters today that the president has called Senate leaders Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid, along with the Senate Judiciary leaders, about nominating a replacement. Earnest says the president will spend the weekend looking into potential nominees. Tonight, mourners are still lining up at the Supreme Court to say goodbye to Justice Scalia, who will be laid to rest Saturday. Earlier, the president and the First Lady paid their respects to the conservative justice who died last week in Texas. They even met privately with members of Scalia's family to express their condolences. Correspondent Shannon Bream has that portion of the story for us tonight.
On a frigid Washington morning, the flag-draped coffin of Justice Antonin Scalia arrived at the U.S. Supreme Court, met by scores of former law clerks who lined the long stairway into the court's great hall. There, Scalia's colleagues received his casket and welcomed his family for a private ceremony led by one of his sons, Father Paul Scalia.
God of faithfulness, in your wisdom you have called your servant Antonin out of this world. Release him from the bonds of sin and welcome him into your presence, so that he may enjoy eternal light and peace.
Scalia's clerks took turns standing vigil at his casket 4 at a time, including former Solicitor General Paul Clement, who shared his thoughts of Scalia's legacy with us.
If he was writing a dissent, if he couldn't cobble together 4 other justices to agree with him, he was writing for justices 20 years later, 30 years later. And I'm quite confident that law students will be reading Justice Scalia opinions a century from now.
Thousands queued up in a line around the block to pay their respects throughout the day, while President and Mrs. Obama stopped in late in the afternoon. Also visiting today, several prominent judges who now find themselves the subject of speculation about whether they could be the president's nominee to fill Scalia's empty seat, including Judge Sri Srinivasan of the U.S. District Court of Appeals, who was unanimously approved by the Senate less than 3 years ago. Outside, a small memorial continued to grow throughout the day, with cheeky nods to some of Scalia's most biting words. The first time the court heard a challenge to the Affordable Care Act, Scalia asked from the bench whether the government could force everyone to buy broccoli. And in a dissent from last year's opinion upholding the subsidy framework of Obamacare, Scalia referred to the majority's reasoning as, quote, pure applesauce. And as it gets darker and colder tonight, the line continues to grow. We're told the wait is about 2 to 2.5 hours at this point. The court has extended the hours for visitation to 9 p.m. As for tomorrow, Father Paul Scalia will celebrate a funeral mass for his father at the Basilica of the National Shrine at 11 a.m. Vice President and Mrs. Biden will be there to represent the administration. Brett.
Shannon Bream, live outside the Supreme Court. Shannon, thank you.